Hi. So you've seen from the video presentation just playing there, I have three great panelists with me to talk about how corporations are using big data and what's different today from, say, a couple of years ago, and how decisions are being driven, perhaps bottom up, but also top down, to influence strategy and the ways in which companies seek competitive advantage. And I'd like to start by asking each one of you, what is different today about your company and the way you use big data? Mm-hmm. And is it radically different, or is it been the sort of like just a general progression from where you were? Gerri, do you want to kick off?
Great question. First of all, thank you for having us here today.
Delighted.
Enjoyed the morning sessions already and got some great feedback and ideas of big data.
Good.
Let me give you a little bit of background about Adobe, because we're in the middle of a major transformation. So for us, 2 years ago versus today is very, very different in our business. 2 years ago, Adobe was primarily thought of as a provider of software that runs on workstations and desktops. Things like Photoshop, InDesign, products that people have used for a long time to build creative collateral, whether it's movies or magazines or photographs. A few years ago, we actually did an acquisition of Omniture, which is a digital analytics company. And we announced that we had a new vision for ourselves as a company. And we would become both a tooling company to provide the best creative collateral tool building environments, as well as tools that would allow you to measure and monetize those pieces of collateral. And through that journey, we've actually announced that we're moving to a completely subscription-based model. So our entire business, which used to be about building software product, burning it on a disk and distributing it through a channel, has now become a cloud-based services company. And because of that, the way our business runs is significantly different. You used to have a quarter end, and at quarter end, you close the books, and you got a few days for the analysts and all of your CFO and financial organization to look at it, and your auditors, and then you announce your numbers, right? Well, now you're a SaaS subscription company, and now you're running your business every day in the moment. And if you see something changing about your retention or your customer acquisition, you have to make a change today, because it isn't a quarterly process anymore. So for us, how that relates to big data is suddenly we're shifting from this concept of post-processing of transactions and analysis to real time. And so I liked the last comments that were made, because I think the concepts of capacity, containerization, and correlation all are very key there. So just as a quick example, very tangibly of how that's changed.
Yep.
In the area of capacity, we've started moving to HANA as an in-memory data store to allow us to get that kind of real-time analytics and visibility. In the concept of containers, we re-architected our entire IT stack so that we now provide a web service layer to integrate our products to the back office. So when people go to our cloud and start using a product, the product actually sends our back office transactional information that we can then correlate to provide visibility to our products team about which features people are using, which features they're not using, how that's relating to acquisitions, how different visualizations and user experience in product or on the site is changing their attrition.
Right.
And so I think it's a huge difference for us.
And the Creative Cloud, I think is like what you call it.
We have two clouds. We have Creative Cloud,
right,
and the Digital Marketing Cloud.
And both of those are driving lots of data into
indeed.
your databases, but also into the analytics.
Indeed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Joe. Campbell.
I think, I don't know that we actually think about big data as big data. We actually think about it as big insights. We've struggled for years as an industry, perhaps by having too much data already. So if I think about warehouse data, or shipment data, sales data, financial data, We have a difficult time getting our arms around that and drawing insights. And the history has always been, well, let's write more reports. Let's try to understand this data. And when they don't get the answer that they were hoping for or want, they ask for more data. And we continue to write more reports and give more information. And what's happened is that the concept of big data is, I think, as a concept, is sort of like a sea of information that can overwhelm you. We've sort of refined our thinking. We think now about big insights, which is building our muscles around being more analytical and asking better questions to get to the specific insight, and thinking about all the sort of information assets that exist out there. So in IT, our big shift has been moving from the back office to the front office. So there's always value in streamlining your processes and reducing your costs and improving your performance. But the big shift for us has been freeing up our capacity to think about the front end, and by being a connector of all of those information assets, so being a conduit to bring those things in. So basically working with our business to refine the questioning process, pushing back quite a bit. So I'm often asked, well, does that mean you wind yourself in sort of an adversarial position with your business partners? And the answer is no. There's a lot of mutual respect between the groups, but we're seen as business partners, and we have the same desired outcome, but we do push back to refine the questioning to target the sources of data and then play the connector between them. We don't necessarily have to provide it.
And have you changed your architectures or anything in any way over the last couple of years to make that sort of get the right question faster, the time to answer that we were talking about?
I think we can do a better job of looking out to the future and being ready for some of those things. But I think with the advent of bringing in specialists who live in that space, digital marketing folks, et cetera, that work with us, they sort of get us out in front, and then we prepare ourselves. It's more in the moment. I think more to what Gerri was saying is that sense and respond, and having the competence to sense and respond versus building lots of things that then persist and then become sort of overhead for your company. So we actually think of our big data connectors or technology as disposable assets or reusable assets or scalable assets, depending on how we want to use them next.
Okay, great. Kim, Intel, what's happening?
So, Martin, I would say you asked the wrong question.
Oh, really?
So
I get that in editorial meetings all the time, but I'm asking that's the wrong question.
You asked what happened in the last 2 years, and I would say, well, the question is what's going to happen in the next 2 years, right? And that's actually the mind shift change that you need to make when you're dealing with large amounts of data. So what's going to happen in the next 2 years at Intel is our products are diversifying. So we're moving from a market of serving PCs and servers, which is a small set of customers, right? Big name OEMs, to PCs, servers, phones, software services, a broad diversified company. And different customers, different routes to market, different development cycles. The life cycle of a phone is half the life cycle of a PC in the market.
Yep.
So that implies we want to be successful in that transformation over the next couple of years. We have to figure out how to get to market faster. So time to market is an enormous challenge, but it's a great opportunity when you think about the data that we possess inside the company to help reduce that time to market. And so we're using machine learning techniques, predictive modeling to drive our development and manufacturing cycles down significantly.
And I was interested, I mean, is there sort of like a concrete example that you can give us of an area where Intel has suddenly moved faster because of the data that you've been able to gather?
The last step before we send a product into high volume production is called post-silicon validation. So we have a wafer. On the wafer, there are billions of transistors. And what you have to do is test them that when the switch is in the off position, no current is flowing. When the switch is in the on position, that current is flowing. So, but you have to test billions of times, and that takes a long time. It can be up to 5 quarters to completely get a product through post-silicon validation. And so what we've done with machine learning and the data analytics from previous tests and the engineering changes, engineering change logs. We've taken that to create a machine learning model to figure out where do we actually test, what circuits do we have to test. And in that machine learning model, we get a 25% increase in coverage of the transistors tested and up to 50% reduction in the time it takes to test.
So it's more efficient and faster.
Yeah, so we think when we're done with this next product life cycle, we will have taken a 5-quarter cycle down to 4 quarters, and I would tell you probably in the next generation it'll be 3 quarters.
Wow.
Right, so that's a huge time to market improvement.
For either of the two of you, any thoughts about time to market and how you've used data to get faster out there?
Well, I know we just launched a new line of soups, and our focus has always been traditionally to focus on the product development steps and stages, so the sort of the trial and error through the kitchens, all that sort of thing. By shifting our focus away from the steps, but shifting our focus to the consumer need, looking at insights around packaging and flavors and processing and delivery systems, et cetera, and marketing, cobbling those together, those sort of assets that I spoke about that we connect, we were able to actually bring in a completely different formulation, different packaging, a different delivery with our Go Soups. It was marketed only on the internet and is a great new product line for us. But we did it by not focusing on our commercial assets that we had today. We sort of threw those to the wind and said, well, how do we make the best product that consumers are expecting or hope to have more quickly than our competition can? And we use more consumer insights around all of those spaces, or technology insights. One of the other really important pieces of I think the big data is just not the physical numbers and sentiment, et cetera. It's also ideas. And by creating an open innovation platform that allows others to connect with us, other parties or entities or groups, if you think about those as part of the big data connecting, you're sort of taking the stuff, the intellectual capital, and the human element of that and bringing those all together to get products to market, getting the right product more quickly versus trying all the different potential products and then having to figure out which one will work.
So instead of sort of chicken soup for the soul, it's data soup for the soul. So that's excellent. A new line from Campbell's, online only.
Think about it.
I trademarked that.
I probably have 2 different examples.
Yeah, great.
One of them I'd use in the product development life cycle. It's really great for those of you who've worked in software engineering to build stuff. And it's really fun to write code. Yeah. And you let a bunch of engineers go off they go, right?
No t-shirts, nothing. It's incredible.
It's great, right? Except they reinvent the wheel a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all shapes of wheels. So what we found was by providing from the IT side a web service layer for doing data management, that we actually sped up go-to-market of product release because the engineers stopped trying to rebuild good data practices. So for example, things like, let's take a simple one, customer identity integration, something that we care a lot about in the back office because we need to use it to let people get to licenses and support and all of these things. But if you're a product team building a new SaaS offering, you could very easily go off and build your own identity management system. So we provided them web services to keep it consistent across the company, and we actually were able to reduce some of the estimated time for product delivery by doing that, because the engineers didn't waste their time building stuff that somebody else already had built, probably better and more robust. So that was a really big win.
And what were the key data sort of feeds that drove that?
Things that you would expect, things like customer information, things like entitlement information. When they came to a SaaS product page and wanted to buy something or subscribe to something, where do you put that data about that subscription element? So those are the examples.
Got it.
I think even more powerful, though, are some things that we've done on the customer acquisition side. And this is some of the most obvious things, very much related to you, about what happens when you want to test some ideas out. And we've found that doing really, really aggressive testing on our website, where you've got millions of people hitting against your site, you can very quickly test ideas on both customer retention and customer acquisition. And so we've become sort of an engine about that. And that really does take a lot of big data analysis, because you need to understand how somebody socially came to your site. You need to understand what they're looking at. You need to understand who they're connected to. If they're already a customer, you need to integrate that into the understanding. And if they already have a product running on their desktop, you'd really like that product intelligence involved as well. So this becomes a very quick analytics big data problem. And we've seen in some areas as much as an immediate 17% uplift on conversions. just by testing some of this type of content. So it can be really effective.
Yeah, we're doing something similar, and I always tell people, start with your logs. If you we've got logs of everything, web logs, you've got machine logs, but logs are a tremendous wealth of information. And as I said, we're going to a new routes to market. The customers of phones and tablets are different than PCs and servers, and so what we did was we looked at what does it take to win a new customer. And one of the things it takes is at Intel is you have to have downloaded one of our reference designs. You have to sort of know what our products do in order for you to design a product around an Intel chip. So we looked at those web logs. We talked to some salespeople in the channel, and they also said, well, you also need a certain amount of R&D dollars to build a product. So guess where D&B happens to have that information available. So we took our web logs, we took the D&B, and we created a sales call list based on most likely to sell because these companies had performed a certain set of precursor tasks that would allow them, and they had conditions, financial conditions of their company that would allow them to actually buy product. And then we took our formerly a territory model, sales model, and we ranked them, and we said, nope, you're now based on priority likelihood to buy. And in 1 quarter after implementation, the revenue per account went up 5x.
Wow.
That's great.
5x.
And
that's sales productivity.
that is sales productivity. And is there a sort of, you told me I asked the wrong question at the beginning, which is absolutely right, but I'm going to ask it again. So 2 years ago, this is a dramatic change for Intel, or again, is this sort of progressive? I mean, did you have to win over the sales organization? Was there lots of opposition to this, or were they begging for it?
Well, so it's interesting in manufacturing, primarily a data-driven culture, high analytics in our manufacturing, no cultural winning over, like got the data, go execute. It's very easy. On the sales side, effectively what we did with that reordering is we took the sales manager position and we made what was incumbent in their head, in their gut, about how to manage a sales team, and we automated it. Huge resistance.
Right, I bet there was. That's why I asked.
Huge resistance. A lot of reasons why that was wrong, et cetera. And so much more of a cultural conversion in that area. So I think it depends on what the culture, and do you have a culture of analytics and understanding, or do you have a culture of, gut instinct, historical experience, I'm the expert, trust me. And I think it matters how you handle the transition and change management with that.
Well, I think there's also a lot of maturity that happens through this process too. I know we've had similar challenges along the way as we've built different analytics on top of, for example, marketing data, where at first it feels like that's a little closed system of data to a marketing analyst. And really very quickly it becomes a set of data that you have to tie to sales data and customer data and prospect data and social data. And suddenly the marketing teams and the marketing analysts start to need some higher order business intelligence skills. So we found sometimes a little failure brings a lot more success later. So sometimes you let people continue to explore until you kind of hit the wall, and then there's a good opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that as I listen to this, and we felt the same thing, there's this, over the last couple of years, the concept of control versus secure enablement has really shifted. So there were domains of control of information versus sort of the secure enablement of the flow of information. And I think giving up the control and providing the secure enablement has been the real big shift, because then this sort of rising tide is raising all boats, right? So, so I think and we've had the exact same thing. Marketing they were a group that used other people's stuff. Now they have a lot of stuff, and the stuff that they have is really a collection of a lot of other people's stuff that they want. So this concept of moving from control to secure enablement has really been a cultural shift within the company, and it's coming pretty quickly.
And it's a governance shift too, right?
It is.
How are you solving that problem?
Actually, we're right now in the process of creating an information governance council. So we have our data assets are classified in particular ways, but we have a group that deals with our social media. We have a group that deals with our sort of corporate communications. But as the information asset classifications shift over time in their importance to the company and their relevance to our business outcomes, we need a higher level group. So the chief marketing officer, myself, and the chief legal counsel, we are beginning to sponsor an information governance council that regularly reviews sort of the flow of information and the governance of that information, and provides guidance in the usage and management of that.
Can we talk a little bit about sort of personalization? Because one of the things that big data is very useful for doing is to target stuff. I mean, we used words targeting earlier on. How have you gone about sort of personalizing your offerings through using the data that you have?
So, yeah, I can certainly jump in first.
Gerri's now.
I would say, a lot of what we do is about taking data from social or our site or our products and then making sure that we bring that immediately into the experience people are having. So the user experience, whether it's our .com user experience or even in-product user experience, based on what you're doing in our product, you may get a different kind of prompt, a different kind of help, a different kind of offer even. In fact, we've even gone as far as having the ability to integrate buy buttons into a desktop solution that's actually connected back into our big data that's controlling what you see and what you're offered.
Right.
So I think the personalization extends from what information you see to how your page looks to the whole user experience that you have.
I don't know how you personalize a soup, but maybe there is.
We actually do.
You do personalize a soup. I knew.
With data.
Actually, we have a great site called Goldfish My Way.
Goldfish My Way.
Goldfish My Way.
Yeah, and one of the great insights that we pulled from our research was that people, first of all, they're passionate about our product, but secondly, they love to look for ways to make occasions special and make people smile. And what we've done is we created a site called Goldfish My Way, where people can create. They design the packaging themselves. They put some images on the packaging. They select the products. They become personalized, and we ship them. So they use
Those
them
little goldfish crackers.
the goldfish
The
crackers.
ones my kids like.
The ones they love.
Personalized soup. There we go. I'd like to open to questions, and then we can perhaps chat a little bit more at the end if there are answers. Can I take questions? There's one over there from a gentleman in a very smart suit.
For Intel, you've had a bunch of success with big data. Looking 2 years ahead, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges to really maximize the benefit you can get from big data?
Yeah, I think looking at the whole, instead of looking at individual problems, we have to stand back and look at system flows, corporate business processes, system flows, things like big time to market, end to end, not just that post-silicon validation step. We're used to looking at compartmentalized problems across the companies, engineering this, marketing that, sales, and the biggest problems are the interconnections of the system. And I think that's a hard problem to solve. But where we've begun to share customer log information and combine that in with engineering real time, we're starting to see huge benefits. It's just a hard problem to solve. For us, though, solving that is probably billions of dollars of cost out of the system because of the time to market reductions.
Other questions? One over here and one at the back. We'll take this one first.
Great, thanks for the panel. Just curious if you can speak a little bit about opportunities and challenges in emerging markets.
Emerging markets and data.
The example I gave on the sales channel was all in Asia. So our channel happens to be growing faster in Asia. Most of those in emerging markets, and my personal opinion is they're much more progressive and much more rapidly moving because they have a I want to overtake scenario versus I'm trying to protect what I have scenario. So I think the emerging markets are rich with opportunity.
From a different perspective, I think some of the laws and privacy stances in international countries are quite different than the US. And for those of us that are working with data that is from interactions, whether it's web or product interactions, it causes a whole level of complexity in how we think about accessing, using, or leveraging that data. So I think the complexity worldwide is pretty extreme for our product areas.
Privacy is it's becoming a bigger and bigger challenge with what we do with our data, who owns the data, who has the rights to the data.
Okay, there was a question in the middle there.
Yeah, hi. So my question, since we've got 3 CIOs up here, is what kind of debate do you have in your organization about the role of traditional IT in kind of supporting the big data paradigm?
Yeah, Joe.
We don't debate it at all, actually. In Campbell's, we're integrated business partners, so we see our job as helping us get products to market, to build our brands and to innovate. So the debate is really how quickly can we, and how do we protect ourselves when we do it. So there's this concept of ownership and control. We really don't feel it at all in our company.
Yeah, so we have a model that says IT will bring the data scientists, the platform, the technical acumen, and the business unit side needs to bring the business problem. And that we cannot do it without one another. Over the last year, what's happened is, in fact, our chief marketing officer, she won't get mad at me, I don't think, says you've awoken the sleeping giant. Because we've been trying to tell you that you could do more with the information we have, but it does take a series of successes. Build that track record, take the low-hanging fruit, and then move on to bigger problems. And we recently led a corporate strategic discussion about how do we run the company better through analytics, and every senior manager, leader in the organization was like, yeah, I want more of that. So it's not a push-pull anymore. It's the pull is so great, we have to run faster to satisfy it.
I would agree with what Kim said. There's a couple things I'd react to. The first is traditional IT. I really don't know what that is, because I don't think there is any such thing as traditional IT. I think every IT organization today is feeling a lot of evolution. And information management has been a core of that evolution for at least 5 years in a serious way. I think what I'm seeing start emerge, and certainly true in our company, is a bifurcation of user experience layers to what I will call system of record data. And to Kim's point earlier, the integration of multiple system of records data together into a common framework that allows access mining and analytics on top of it. So for us, we focused IT on helping to ensure that we have that core data, that system of record data cross-mingled across the company in a way that's useful, and then provide that to a series of user experience capabilities that the business can self-use, self-develop. And what's been happening, much like Kim said, is we can't even provide enough resources. Like, I could put everybody, my staff on this, and there would still be latent demand in the business. But what we've built from this is a fabulous collaboration with the business. They now value what it means to have system of record data that's cross-correlated, because they can stop worrying about that. And they've been given a rich set of tools to build their user experiences on top of it.
So one of the things we struggle with is system of record data. Even on the consumer side. So if you think about trusted sources of data and places where everybody goes to get their trusted information. If you're into sports equipment, you'll go out to your beginnertriathlete.com and look at the ratings around products. And the first place that we are told that people don't trust our data is on our website. They're going to go to places where people like them congregate to understand data about our product, understand our products. So there's a system of record operationally that we absolutely have to control, but system of record versus system of reference, and we were talking about this earlier, system of reference in many cases is more powerful in the big data world when you're talking about your customers than your system of record. The record may be the facts, but the perception is what could be driving your business. So being able to understand—
The record is basically what they've done, and the reference is, what's the reference?
System of record, I think, is the thing you trust.
Okay.
And
it's what it's showing you.
So
and the reference is?
Reference is what your system is what they actually trust. So,
I see.
so we may, it may not be our internal system of record about a product. It may not be our internal information about our product. However, the vast majority of people who love that product may be getting their system of record, their trusted source, may be Livestrong, or it may be All Recipes, or it may be some other place. So we have to be able to bring that in, even though it is not our system of record. It's a very strong system of reference, and maybe more important to us than our own.
Got it. One last question. I was struck by Kim. You said the data scientists, they're mine. They sit in the IT department. Don't you have business units saying, hang on a moment, why can't we have the data scientists? Why are they all yours? It's IT controlling everything again.
Well, so
You tell me that's the wrong question, right? We'll finish as we started.
Here's the predicament. Actually, ultimately, over time, I believe data scientists will sit in many different functions within the company.
Okay.
But they're precious, they're scarce, and you want to direct them towards the highest value business problems. So they're centralized for now because it's an emerging skill with a scarce resource. Over time, though, it is very much you'll see much more of a decentralized model.
And Kim, don't you also think it's because of the phase you're in and we're in right now of bringing together all those disparate sources of data and data modeling it in a way that's cohesive? And that's a hard problem. I mean, you do need sort of a central core, high brain power team. That is not easy. And I think once that core work gets done, I think the dissemination of those skills could make more sense.
Terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, please would you thank my excellent panelists here. It was a great discussion.